Cheyenne, tell me a little bit about this new organization.
Yeah, Reckoning Action was born out of this movement and the momentum that was created by the brave women who came forward. We've seen that not only is there one bad actor, it is a systemic rot. And so we exist to address the problem at its roots, not only in Congress, but more broadly, the cultural resurgence of misogyny that we have seen both on Capitol Hill and in the media and across our entire culture. And so that's what Reckoning Action is planning to do.
It's a really broad mandate to go after misogyny. Why do we need an organization to do that?
Yeah, I think that we live in a world right now where the clock has been turned back on women. And if we look at the ecosystem, folks are fighting in a lot of silos, right? We have folks fighting for reproductive health care. We have people who are organizing in different areas for women, but we're losing the battle of the cultural narrative, which is the story we tell about women and what they deserve in this country. And that's something that we're seeing being altered through social media discourse and the rise of the manosphere, this very coordinated effort to amplify tradwife content. This is not organic. It's something that is very much manufactured, and we need an organized resistance, and that's what Reckoning Action is going to do.
And how would Reckoning Action attack that?
So we're going to start at the very root of the problem, which we see as the culture. When we talk to a lot of the women who, held these stories of harassment and abuse for so long, part of the problem obviously was the reporting standards in Congress, but another side of the problem was that they have been told over the last decade from their doctor's offices, on social media, from the culture, from the content that they consume, that they are not to be believed. And that cultural backlash has been something that has contributed to the backsliding that we see now. And so we're really going to work on the side where I think we're so behind, which is an organized social media resistance, a voice in new media that is changing the stories we tell about women. And we're also going to take the fight everywhere where they think no one is watching, to the state legislatures where they're going after no-fault divorce, to every state that's investigating and criminalizing pregnancy loss. These are areas where we need to make sure that we are standing up a united front and we're moving in coalition. And so that's really important to us too, to stand in community with the other organizations that are doing this work and to have a united front altogether against misogyny.
How will this organization help women who do decide to come forward?
The roots of this organization are a coalition of women who came together to expose bad actors, and that is something that we are dedicated to expanding upon. It took 11 days for us to get these stories and connect women with pro bono legal support, with communication support, with emotional support, and get these stories out there and expose predators, and that's something we're committed to doing. And so we're going to be a resource hub to make sure that no matter where these women are, we've heard dozens of stories from folks in newsrooms, from folks who are C-suite executives themselves, who are saying that this is happening to them and they didn't feel like they had the resources to come forward, but now they do because we've got their back. And so we're making sure that that resource hub exists more broadly for women who have a story to tell.
Were there things that happened after this group of women came forward that led you to realize that this organization was needed?
It became clear after this group of women came forward that this was bigger than Eric Swalwell. We've seen multiple other members of Congress exposed. We've heard about a member of the Senate. We've heard about folks who are in other industries, celebrities, reporters, executives. And so it became clear that this is bigger. And when we had conversations about what was stopping them from seeking justice, it was the messages that they were receiving culturally and from their community organizers, from their state legislators, and from the federal government as a whole, telling them that women's issues had really been pushed to the back burner. And so that's something that we're committed to fighting and why we realized that there needed to be a larger organized resistance in this moment.
Will your organization also be providing legal assistance for women once they do come forward?
So as we've done before, we've connected women with pro bono counsel, and we're committed to continuing to do that. We're working in partnership with the National Women's Law Center to be able to make sure that they have the support that they need when they come forward to tell these stories. So often, we demand of women their bravery, their vulnerability to bear to us their trauma, and then we abandon them after they've taken that first step. But the legal resources, it's clear based on what Swalwell is continuing to do to the women who came forward, those resources have to stay with those women long after they first break the news, right? They need continued legal support, they need therapy, they need community, and that's what Reckoning Action is going to bring to the table.
Talk about the aftermath, of these women coming forward. What were the positive things that happened? What were some of the negative things that happened?
Telling this story has been a really up and down process, I think, for me and for the survivors. When we broke it on social media first, we were basically exiled from politics for the 11 days until it was broken by a mainstream media outlet. And while I can understand that, and that's why we went through the process the way we did, because these stories needed to come out the right way, be vetted, come from a reputable outlet, it also shows the internalized misogyny that's on both sides of the aisle that allows predators like these to be emboldened and to get away with behavior like this for so long. After those first big pieces in the San Francisco Chronicle reporting and CNN came out, the welcome that we received has been incredible. I'm really proud of my party, and I'm proud of the Democratic establishment for how they've received and supported these women. But the story and the fight is not over. We still are having a conversation about the fact that Eric Swalwell has this huge war chest that he's using to stalk and harass and intimidate these women. And we need to pass laws right now that restrict the ability to abuse donor dollars in this way. We're working with lawmakers right now to make sure that that gets done. We're also working with the Democratic Women's Caucus, who have embraced all of us in this work and the survivors, to make sure that we can pass different ethics rules that better protect staffers here on Capitol Hill.
You don't see that much bipartisan agreement on Capitol Hill these days. Were you surprised by how many congressional women lawmakers came out in support of this effort?
I was surprised. I think I've been also culturally conditioned over the last 10 years to see kind of the resurgence of misogyny, and I wasn't sure if women would be believed and if we would have each other's back regardless of race, religion, creed, or party, and yet it turns out, at least to a certain extent, we do. It's been incredibly gratifying to see women from both sides of the aisle step up, and now to get to work with them to try to make this a safer place to work. And I think the example we set here will trickle down. Like, these are the halls of power. This is the most powerful place, some might say, in the world. And if we can set a standard here that predators will not be tolerated, I really do think that that will send a message across the country and in all other industries.
What kinds of rules need to change here on Capitol Hill?
Well, right now, the system is kind of a black box. We hear of things referred to committee, and then years go by before we ever hear of a finding. We hear of cases that are dismissed without much of any meaningful process. I've also heard a number of stories from women who have reported their abuser, who may or may not either be their boss or a different lawmaker. They get referred to mandatory therapy and then spit back out and told that that was the end of the process. That's something I've heard from multiple people. And so it's clear that right now the reporting system as it stands requires you to report the people that you work for, who you know are in charge of and run the very system that's supposed to hold them accountable. It's fundamentally broken. We would never see this in a corporation, right? Like, there's an HR department, there's a separate process and a firewall that goes up, and it's something where we just need Congress to catch up with the times.
So they're basically operating in an outdated system.
It's outdated, and it was clearly designed not for the purpose of seeking justice, equity, or a safe workplace. It was designed to protect and insulate the people in power. And I think that right now this reckoning is demanding that that changes.
The women who came forward, how are they doing?
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They're not great. I mean, they're still being harassed. They've spoken out, and that was, I think, empowering, and to be received with so much support has been great. And at the same time, we are forming reckoning action because it can't stop there. We have to see meaningful change. And I think a lot of them are sitting kind of waiting with bated breath to see if we can actually get the bills across the finish line. Because the truth is, it will have all been for, I don't want to say nothing, but the real potential here is meaningful change. And if we can't capitalize on that, then we're really doing a disservice to them and their bravery. So that's why we're so committed to this fight.